Yeah, I thought you did. I just wanted to be sure that we got the credit where credit was due, and that is that's a powerful song. It kind of subtly reaches you. It just builds up, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, this is a message, and it's a good song. I really like it. John Bon Jovi, what are your thoughts?
Well, I tell you what, I've listened to a lot of Grant's music over the few months, and I see some of Grant's. Grant, I see some of your posts on Facebook. Some of them are downright hilarious, and some of them are just downright serious. And judging from what I see, sometimes I think I can see where some of the inspiration for your music may come from. That's a beautiful song, I reckon. What was the thought process that went into that?
Well, I was just thinking back one day about all the things that, my daddy would try to get into my fuzzy little brain when I was growing up. And some of the lessons stuck, some of them didn't because, when you're especially a young man, you kind of think you know everything. You realize later you really didn't know anything, hardly. And,
really?
And you have to make some mistakes on your own and fall down and get a bloody nose and then go, oh, that's what my dad told me about, isn't it? Yeah, well, but that's, I think,
brother,
human
ain't
nature.
that the truth?
You just got to learn it. So I wanted to write a song about that kind of idea where some lessons you can learn, some you kind of have to learn yourself, but the idea is to try to pass it down, whatever you can, to the next generation.
You did an excellent job.
Hope for the best. Thank you.
You did an excellent job there, and I hope a lot of people will listen to that because there's a lesson to be learned as well as a great song to listen to. And you're known for some great music, and you're also known for working a lot with emerging, upcoming artists, unsigned artists. And one of your projects that you have built up. You built it up very well in a short period of time. You call the Indie Collaborative. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. It's a worldwide organization of about 2,200 musicians, independent musicians, including Nikki Chris, who I just heard you talk about.
Right.
We've played together in Hollywood once or twice and around the country. And it's just about forming or helping musicians connect together to kind of form collaborations, and some of them are really unexpected. People come together you'd never believe would be a match, but they are, and it's just been so rewarding because I get to meet all these people from all over the world, and we get together and do showcases and shows and that kind of thing. It's just a whole lot of fun, and it's kind of its own reward,
I know what you mean. It's kind of like the feeling we get during doing this show. We don't get to physically meet, all of the guests that we have on the show, but we do get to meet them as guests, and that is it's a thrill beyond belief. Just like sitting and talking with you as well, and makes your work makes you uniquely qualified to do what we try to do here with our recurring feature, Rockstar 101, where we talk about, what it takes to make it in the music industry today, because it's different than it was, it's different than it was 10 minutes ago. And I thought maybe you would be able to offer some advice to upcoming artists that are looking to make their way into and up the ladder of the music industry today. What would you recommend they would do as start with an overview, a game plan, if you will.
Sure. Well, I always describe the whole music thing as a coin. It's, a coin has two sides. You have the face of the coin and the tail, or the heads and the tail. And one side of the coin you could look at as the music itself, the art of the music, the art and the craft of it. But that's for us musicians. That's the fun part. And in fact, it's kind of like the easy part in a way. I'm not saying it's easy to always write great songs. It's not. But I mean, in terms of what's on the tail of the coin, it's the easy part for most musicians. The other side is the business part, which is not so much fun normally for artsy kind of people because it requires a lot of diligence and perseverance, and you face a lot of rejection. On the other side of the coin, people clap for you every 4.5 minutes. And they go, yay, that was wonderful, and they might give you some money. On the other side of the coin, you get rejected far more. No one's clapping for you. You face a uphill battle all the time. I think the important thing, not to depress anybody, but is just to impress the idea that you need to recognize that there's two different sides to this coin, and that you have to work them both. You can't just do the music and ignore the other side, or let it, kind of not go anywhere. You need to push that side too. And if there's something you don't know how to do, you got to find someone who can help you do it, and someone that you can trust also.
That's something that we have heard expressed before, and we have tried to repeat it. The thought that it is something you have to work at. It's not something where you just go up and play your music. It's called a business for a reason, and you have to know. You have to know how to deal with the business. John Bon Jovial, you have a comment?
Well, yeah. I mean, we always hear people say, and of course, I know they're very sincere about it. You've got to work at this. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. But Grant, what I want to know, from your perspective, what is the basic tenet that every artist must achieve? I mean, everybody has their own individual story, their unique story of success or failure. But those that do succeed, they do it their own way. But what is the basic tenet that is not unique but universal to all artists that apply their skills and make it in the business?
I think the one thing that's in common among everyone who does that is that they know themselves, they know who they are, artistically speaking, and they know what they want to do, and they don't stop until they achieve it. They have a singular vision about what they want to, how they want to present themselves, what they want their music to do. In a way, I don't mean to trivialize it, but they market themselves really, really well. They know, but before you can do that, you have to know who you are. You can't just be copying somebody else. You have to know who you really, truly are and express that, and then you need to sell that, just like it was a McDonald's hamburger. You do it just the same way they do in business. You make a list of all the features and benefits of that product and how you want it to make people feel, and then you go about ramrodding that through the industry. That's the only way you can do it. I think people that succeed have done that really well. They know who they are, and they can get that message out there.
Right. And another thing that we have heard many times from many guests on the show is the fact that you've got to love what you're doing. You don't do it strictly for the money. It's a case of you're doing something that you love, you're working at something that you love, and the money is kind of like a bonus. If you do it right, you're going to make some money down the road.
I agree with that. And I think one thing I kind of left off in my last little speech there was it has to be honest. Whatever your vision for yourself is, it has to be real. It can't be just some made-up thing that you're trying to use to try to get somewhere in the business. It has to really be you. People know if it isn't you. If you just are trying to package yourself up like a product and there's no real, like Wendy's commercials used to say, where's the beef? There's no real heart in what you're singing about, or there's no real love behind what you're doing. I think people sense that. You need to be true to yourself and really reach people emotionally.
You got to be real, and that makes a lot of sense. It's something that's a tenet that can go along with life in general, and it's a good one to remember. You're absolutely right there. In summary, if you would, before we get, because I know you brought us another song we want to get to as well, but to summarize a little bit for an artist that, let's just arbitrarily pick a situation. You've got an artist that has discovered they want to be a professional musician, whether it's a singer, an instrumentalist, a part of a group, whatever. They want to be in that realm. Yeah. They've got their basics. They know how to play their instrument or sing their parts. And they have done, they've done some playing maybe for friends, neighbors, backyard parties, the church, choir, whatever. They want to take that next step to get into it for real. What should they be looking for? What should they do?
Well, I think it's easiest if you can find some like-minded people that want to do the same thing you want to do or be part of what you want to do. I mean, it's the cliche, start a band and just start playing around, and usually for free until you get a big enough following. But you could join an existing group too, if they're looking for somebody like you. But somehow you got to get off the ground and get into. If you don't know how to form a group on your own yet, because you've never done it before, then join one, or just do whatever you can to get your foot in, so you understand how the whole thing works.
What about the clash of egos when you're putting together a band, when you're putting together people that might have like-minded ideas of how to succeed, but they might think that, well, it's my way or the highway. How do you handle the ego trips that are involved in this, and also how do you handle telling people to just calm the you-know-what down because you're not going to get anywhere this way? So I'm just really I've always been kind of curious about that.
Yeah. I went through a little of that when I was much younger, because when you're in your 20s, that's when that, or even earlier, that's when that stuff normally happens quite a bit. It doesn't happen anymore because everybody my age is mature and they do it for a living, and so it really isn't much ego. I'm making a record right now in Nashville. I'm hiring some of the best players in town to play on the record, and they don't show any ego ever. They don't need to. They're at the top of the game.
Right, exactly.
So
they don't have to
convince with each other. No, and they're not trying to show off by playing. They're trying to make my record be as good as they can possibly make it. They don't have any ego about it. That's how they get their satisfaction. So I don't know. It's tough when you're young because you're also immature and you don't know how to really deal with those kind of things. But in my case, I was always the band leader, so I could just give somebody their walking papers if they became an issue and were
that's a good
hurting
feeling.
the band. Just replace them.
What kind of it's good to be the king. What kind of sage wisdom was imparted upon you when you were, a teenager or a 21-year-old that think you knew it all because, hey, I can play this here git fiddle pretty good, so, I know everything I need to know. I mean, what was said to you?
Wow. I don't even know if I remember anymore. I'm sure most of it went in one ear and out the other, and I probably made every mistake you could make. I think it's just a matter of maturity. You grow up and you realize, hey, this really is a business. It's not just my ego and me prancing around on stage. We need to put on a good show for the folks, otherwise no one's going to come anymore. It can't be about us. We need to make it about the audience. You should make everything about the audience, not about you.
I think the same thing can be said with us ex-radio jocks like David and I when we were young, in our teens and 20s and starting off in radio, and it was so important to me to be able to do my art and play my music and make sure the segues were just exactly right. And now, I could give a crap less about that because I would much rather just have a conversation.
You relax. You got the relaxation of maturity.
Yeah.
And another thing you said brought up some memories in my mind when you were talking about joining a group, the common purpose, working on your art and craft instead of trying to be a superstar your first time out and everything. Brought back memories of a friend of mine and John's, and that's Bob Shane, the late Bob Shane of the Kingston Trio. And I remember talking with him, and John, I think you were there for this conversation. We were sitting in his living room, and we got down to stuff we hadn't talked about, the little details and everything. And I asked him, I said, how did you actually get started? I mean, everybody knows you went up to San Francisco, you guys were playing music, and you played at the Hungry Eye, and boom, you were stars overnight. How did you actually get started? And he told
remember that conversation.
He told his little story. He says, Dave, I got to be honest with you. We had no idea of becoming stars. He says, we knew these guys that were playing in town, and they were making money, and they were meeting girls. And he said, frankly, we just got the idea that, hey, we got to go out and perform. We got to go play music because the girls like people that play music, and we want to meet the girls. And that's how they got started. They had a common motivating factor. they did what they did well, and they built more than a career